All right. Good morning. You are tuned into 1100 WSGI, and this is Lee Marie with The Go Show. I'm so glad you all have joined us. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much. We are so blessed. We just ask for you to take this show today where you want it to go. We thank you for your angels of protection all around us. We love you. We praise you. We need you. We surrender to you in the mighty and matchless name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
All right. All right. My special guest today is Linda's favorite guest, Stephen. and of course, you know, The Go Show is your source for information, inspiration, and always some dates to add to your
I gotta put
calendar.
my hat on here because Linda says I worked too hard getting my hair to go straight up all night while I was trying to sleep there. I'm gonna have to put my hat back on.
Oh my goodness. All right. All right. Are you ready?
Who's ready?
Well, you got your hat on. You're ready.
Ready. Like
Okay.
that little bunny is little drummer.
Ever
bunny.
ready? Okay.
Yeah, little drummer.
Ever ready, bunny. All right. So yes, so we have definitely some dates for your calendar, and then we also, of course, have some inspiration and information. So, do you want to start with our fear chapter, or do you want to start with calendar?
What's going on today?
Okay.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah, how y'all doing? If you haven't been outside yet, let me tell you, it's a lot warmer than it was yesterday, which that's great. I do know that I'm sure most of you follow Robco Weather with Bill Jones. But if you don't, please go on Facebook and follow it because he gives a lot of great local information. And as you guys know, there's a storm that's coming in. Well, it's expected to be coming in early Saturday morning or possibly late Friday night. That we might be getting some snow. And so you're going to want to be watching and seeing what to do for that. But of course, you know, all the regular stuff, make sure your generator's going and, you know, that your generator's working, I should say, not going. And of course, you know, I was reading some of the stories about, I guess, I don't know when it was, 2003 or something, that they actually had some power outs that were like 13-day power outs in this area
Yeah.
and a week long of no water. So we're not.
Those are like earthquake style power outs when they have a big earthquake out in California and power out for a month. I've done a lot of people like that. We're stuck out there. If you know, when the power goes out, the water goes out in a lot of places. So sometimes what happens is there's no power and there's no water. Two things that you realize very quickly that
How
you
much
have
you
a hard
use.
time living without water and hot water. When it's cold,
Oh,
you
yeah.
need hot water, y'all. So I don't know if you get out there in the fire. If you don't have electricity, and well, if you don't have electricity, how is anything going to work? Nothing's going to work, right? Your water heaters are not going to work. Anything that requires everything has electrical in it now, right? Everything has some kind of an electrical device in it. And if it doesn't have electricity, it's not going to work. And you can't run big stuff on D-cell batteries. It's not going to happen. I mean, you might be able to work a flashlight on a couple of batteries, but you can't work a water heater. And what's your wife going to say when there's no hot water, right? So there's a huge problem, huge problem. Now, I know we have a generator, and I have had to, in the past, to get the generator running to keep things running in the house. So you can get special hookups for that, mainly just for the refrigeration. We don't want all those steaks going bad, right? We like our beef. We don't want that going bad. We like our pork chops. You know, we like our pork chops. We don't want that going bad, right?
So anyway, back to so you know, just the normal preparedness stuff because like I said, today is really beautiful out. I think it was like in the 40s if I wasn't reading something wrong, which was a
Well, it
lot
was
warmer
so
than
cold.
yesterday.
Yesterday it was so cold. The day before and yesterday it was so cold. I think the Chihuahuas were complaining. They said, you know what? We think we want to go back to Mexico. They had a little vote. You know, they had a vote. They want to go back to Mexico. It's too cold in Tennessee.
Oh.
I told them to be okay. We'll get them some new sweaters and a couple of new hats, and they'll be all right.
All right, but I do want to mention because I want to get this on everybody's calendar. Friday, February 13th. So I know it's a little bit less than a month away, but that is our Sweetheart Sock Hop at the well. And so you might say, oh, I don't have a sweetheart. Oh, it's okay. You know, bring your mommy, bring your daddy, bring your friend. Can't bring your pets, but you can bring all types of whoever, or just come on your own and meet new friends. Because we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. We're going to be doing line dancing. We're going to do a hand jive. We're going to do twist. We're going to do jitterbug. East Coast swing, just a bunch of fun stuff. And there's some students that want to show off what they have been learning. So we have some really cool choreography that we've done to some 50s songs.
We talk about that. We talk about sweethearts and sweetheart, whether you have a sweetheart or not, and all that. But I think we don't focus enough on those who actually are supposed to have a sweetheart. You know what I mean? Like if you're married, I don't know what your situation might be, but you might be with a significant other. Okay, so that could be your wife, and we don't talk about that enough, I don't think. What about that? Husbands and wives, right? After you've been married for about 10 years and you have 2 children, is she still your sweetheart? Like, I mean, there was a time when the girl that you were married to was the only thing on your mind. Like, you couldn't think of anything else but her, right? There was a time when she completely possessed your soul, right? Does she still possess your soul? I mean, have the trials and tribulations of life worn you down so much that you're no longer possessed by the thought of that beautiful woman, right?
You mean the enemy?
Well, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But
and remember, your spouse is not your enemy.
We're going to be talking
The
a little
enemy is the enemy.
We might be able to talk a little bit, but we might be able to entertain the idea of the enemy. But what I'm talking about here is maybe it's time to reevaluate. Maybe it's time to say, you know what? I have been so overwhelmed. I've allowed myself to become so overwhelmed that I forgot who my sweetheart was, right? I think your wife would appreciate that, and if you remember. Now, doing something very simple, because back in the day when you were first together, it was like the simplest thing: going to McDonald's and getting a hamburger together, sneaking off together. I mean, the simplest thing in the world was everything, and it just meant so much to everybody. So, if you remember that, who was your sweetheart, right? There was a time when that girl was your sweetheart, right? And I know I want to get teared up too on this one too, because we all want to fall in love. We all want to be in love. And everybody wants to be in love and have a prince and a princess, right? And we've talked about the princess so much on this. We love this idea because it's in all of us. And if you don't think that you don't like a princess story, I would tell you what, I would beg to differ. I believe everybody is enchanted and completely enchanted by the princess story, right? And the princess story is about a boy finding his sweetheart, right? It's about a girl finding her sweetheart. That's what the princess story is about. And if you go on Hallmark, you'll know that just there's one after another, and they all have the very same story. My dad always complains. He goes, it's the same story every time. And I said, Dad, that's the important part about this, to remember that there is one story, and it's a story about the boy meets girl and they fall in love. Now, if we forgot what it felt like to be completely consumed about the idea of that girl, because I don't think, it wasn't too long ago that every one of us, and if you're honest with yourself, you'll remember that is how you felt about her. Now, can we recapture that? Maybe it's time to just at least remind yourself and remind her of the day that it was, the time that it was special, because that is something that she'll always have. Remember, I like that, like the end of that movie in Casablanca, right? Where he says, we'll always have Paris, right? There was a time when she was his sweetheart. And they honor the memory of that time. Now, when you've been married there was a couple who a man, you were getting your hair done. There was a man in the hair salon who had mentioned that he had lost his wife, and they had been married for over 60 years, I believe.
Yeah,
and so
actually,
remember,
you want me to tell that
for 60 years? If you've been married for 60 years, you still do have a memory of that time when it was special, right? There was a time back in the day, and you look at the old photos and stuff and watch the old movies and things, people were having a good time back in the day, right? And back in the 50s, when those people that would have been married for 60 years would have been young people in the 1950s and in the early 60s. So, and they were having a good time. Remember that. They were young kids having a good time. They had sweethearts back then. And they were sweethearts back then. They might look like your great-grandma or your great-grandpa, your pawpaw, or your granddaddy, or your granddaddy's granddaddy, but, right, they might look like that, but there was a time when they were young and free and handsome and beautiful, just like you are today. So remember, that we want to talk about sweethearts. We're going to be talking about sweethearts. It's going to be coming up, right?
No, I think that that's a good thing to bring up right now because we are less than a month away from Valentine's Day, and it's a good topic because we've never talked about that.
Well, leading into that, I know there's going to be a sock hop coming up, right? And we are going to have a sweetheart sock hop. It's going to be a Valentine's Day sock hop. I don't know what that's going to be called. Is that going to be at
It's
Well in the
called
Square?
Yeah, it's going to be at Well in the Square in our beautiful ballroom that has a wonderful wooden floor. And I just want to tell the people out there, I am so proud of the folks that came out this past couple weeks. Weathering the cold of the morning. We even had 4 people come out on Martin Luther King Day because it was a Monday, and I'm going to start doing stuff like that on the Monday holidays because it's a day that some people can't normally come. And so I had some people come and they said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that you had this beautiful wooden dance floor," because they were, when you're older, especially, you feel that in your knees immediately. If you are because sometimes they'll put, it'll look like wood, and underneath the cement, but this is just such a forgiving dance floor. And so, so wonderful over there. So yes, the Sweetheart Sock Hop is going to be on Friday, February 13th. This is a great thing. And like Steven said, bring back that romance. Right now you can tell your wife, honey, I would love to take you to the Sweetheart Sock Hop. Because here's the thing, ladies, this is a fact for the most part, ladies like to dance more than men. And she would love to be in her husband's arms dancing.
Until men get into it and they learn how fun it is, and then they love to dance too. But we have to remember that it is really the important part there is that it's about something very special and organic that happened a long time ago. Most of the time when you say this, when you fall in love, you are consumed by that, right? And this is the the passion that leads to so many different things in life. But at the same time, if you understand that moment of being ultimately consumed by falling in love is something that's completely organic and very natural, but it's something you cannot control. It's really interesting. You can control a lot of things, right? That's boring. Having perfect control over some things is very mundane and boring. When you're struck by love, when you're struck by Cupid's arrow, so to speak, when you're struck by Cupid's arrow and you fall in love, there's nothing that can hold you back. Right?
And you want to do so much for that person.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't. It wouldn't matter if they locked you up. And we always, this is the thing that's so important to understand because you have superhuman powers when you fall in love. No one is going to hold you back from getting to that girl because you love her. Same thing with that girl. I mean, if you remember Shakespeare, in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Juliet refers to Romeo as her God. She is so consumed. This is important to understand. The language. This is how a 14-year-old girl thinks. This is the mind of a 14-year-old girl. And and Romeo being about 16 years old, of course, he acts and talks and thinks just like a 16-year-old. He's rash and he doesn't have a lot of critical thinking in his way of going about things. So remember, Romeo and Juliet, the star-crossed lovers, as it were, right? So we have so much fun when we fall in love, but at the same time, there comes a time after 65 years of marriage when you have to look back on it and know that you will always have that memory. You will always have that time, and you share it. And when you're gone, no one will know. They'll have to come up with their own special falling in love memory. And I think that it's one of the things we fought. When you fall in love, you've got something to fear, right? And this is the thing. We talk about fear of loss or fear of abandonment. When you are in love with a girl, the fear that you have of not being able to have her or have her taken away from you is the most horrible feeling you can possibly have in the world. And I know. And when you have kids later on, if you have children, and mothers know this, the children are so important, so loved. And the fear of losing a child, a parent losing a child, something that they love. Now, I've got a couple of Chihuahuas at home, and I have a terrible fear of losing my Chihuahuas. They're cold. They're getting older now. They're about 10 years old. And I love them dearly. They're like my children. And, right? They're like my children. And if you have a dog like that, your favorite dog, even the worst people in the world have had a favorite dog. They said that Hitler had a favorite dog. He had a puppy. a favorite German Shepherd puppy? Yeah, he did. And he loved that dog more than anything. So there's a thing that even the worst person on the planet can totally love a little puppy or love a dog or have a favorite animal. And I've got two favorites. I can tell you, I love Henry and Harvey. They're my favorites. And I think Henry is very
I left the
special.
radio on and they're listening, so you better mention
They
Dixie
are listening
too.
right now, so the little
Dixie's
ears
listening.
are perking up. Dixie's listening. Dixie,
Dixie's your favorite too. Come on now.
Dixie's also a favorite. So we have three of them.
We do leave the radio
If they are
station on
listening-
because they do hear our voices.
The
and then
dogs are listening right now, and they're listening in. I'm talking about Henry. And yeah, can you hear him? He does a little grunt. He's a Chihuahua, and Chihuahuas have that little growly grunt that they give. If you know Chihuahuas, they have that little noise. They make a little gurgly noise.
Henry makes it more than Harvey
Henry does make it a lot. He is a true Chihuahua gurgle.
because he wants to be in constant contact with us.
He does.
He's always commenting on everything. We'll say something,
does.
he's like, rah, rah.
He does. He likes to comment. But, somebody posted something the other day about Chihuahuas, and I love the Chihuahua post. If you ever go on Facebook or whatever, they've got a bunch of Chihuahua groups on there, and I got a couple of them. They posted something. Said, you remember, before you get mad at him, and that little picture of little Chihuahua, that did something wrong, right? Before you get mad at him, remember he's got the IQ of about a 2-year-old, and that's true. My dogs act like 2-year-olds. And if you've ever had a 2-year-old, they call it the terrible twos.
I don't
And,
know,
they
Henry
have a
kinda-
reason to call that the terrible twos. I remember my niece Emily, who's all grown up now, and totally embarrass her by telling you the story. But
Oh, wait a
couldn't
second.
take
Speaking
Emily
of
anywhere.
nieces,
yes, I know.
we got to say happy birthday to Bridgie because
to her sister Bridget.
It was her birthday yesterday, and also happy birthday Vita Brown, and happy birthday Don Bliss. We had 3 birthdays yesterday. So,
Happy birthday to all of our favorite folks out there, and our little niece Bridget, who is all growing up right now, working hard, and a great career in the Justice Department. So, in her state. But yeah, that's a fun situation. When you have somebody you love, you always have a memory of how you fell in love. They wouldn't call it falling in love if it didn't have some sense, some exasperating sense, or some overwhelming sense of falling. And if you've ever fallen through the air, you have that, oh my goodness, I'm out of control falling. That is what falling in love is really about. So we're talking about falling in love. And when you fall in love, you suddenly have the opposite feeling of fear that enters your life, because you are now afraid that you are going to lose something. Right? Because if you didn't have any control over gaining it, you don't have any control over losing it. And this is where faith comes in, right? You have to have some faith. So a relationship is based on faith. When you fall in love, you have to have faith. You have to be a faithful partner to the person you're in love with, and they have to be faithful to you. So it's faith and faithfulness that sustains love, because love cannot be controlled. Because when you're in love, you are out of control. And the only governing element of being out of control is having faith. When you can't control something, you have to have faith that it's going to work out. So many times I think to myself, wow, I am so fortunate that I have a wonderful wife, a beautiful wife, and who has such great faith in life. She loves life, right? She loves life. She just loves the adventure of every new day. And there's nothing that ever gets her down. Nothing. But she is going to tell a story in a minute here, Lee Marie. She's going to tell a story about something that she's afraid of, because we're going to be talking about what makes you afraid, right?
yes. Well, we're not going to do that right away. We'll do that at
But we are in a little bit. We're going to talk about things that
because
make us
here's the
afraid.
thing. I know we had picked fear as a topic for today, but also on the way here, we were praying, Lord, take the show where you want it to go. And we didn't plan on talking about the whole sweetheart thing, but I think that was right from God, because that was a good message. So,
Well, I think the important part about that is to understand that when you fall in love, you suddenly are faced with the fear of loss. And that is something that we can't deny. We really can't deny that. And it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. When it's you and your partner against the world, it's kind of like you're going to run off together, right? This is the whole, we're going to run off together, and
You and me against the world.
we're gonna leave the world. We're gonna leave our troubles behind, right? So here's the old day. That's right. Jack and Diane was a very famous song, right? They're gonna run off together. They're gonna take the money and run, right? So
Okay.
if you always remember that, this is the way you feel when you're 16 years old, right? And I think that I think that Linda's smiling over there. She keeps smiling, smiling.
She's
shaking
smiling
her
because
head. Yeah, yeah,
she's
yeah.
telling me that
I
I'm
think I
past my
remember.
time for a commercial break. So I'm going to talk about this shirt that I have on right now. I have my Coldstream Christian Camp shirt on, which this is the first time I've worn this. I got it at their last fundraiser. Anyways, we have this beautiful camp right about 15 minutes from here, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's in Adams, and boy, oh boy, that ground is gorgeous. A huge lake you can fish on, cabins that you can rent individually for a family, or you can rent the whole campground. I love Coldstream. And so you want to be looking at your calendar now and getting your dates on the books because they do book fast, and they also hold kids camps in the summertime as well. So you want to get those dates down too. You can go and get a tour. You can contact them at 615-696-2208, 615-696-2208, or you can visit their website, coldstreamchristiancamp.org. They're located at 4730 Goodman Road in the city of Adams. Did you want to add anything to that, or is that good?
Well, if you love the smell of pine trees, cool breeze, start planning now for that vacation. Start planning now for those trips for that summer camp.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Plan ahead, right? Right
Yep,
now is
yep,
the
yep.
time we start looking at our schedule and saying, well, what are we going to be doing in the
Mm-hmm.
springtime, right?
That's right. Also, just want to remind you guys, the window is slowly closing on those presents that you got via Amazon. You have some. I know you have some that you need to return. So you better get into our UPS store right here. We love our UPS store staff. They are amazing, and they can do so many things. I mean, what are some of the services they do?
UPS?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. UPS, the banners.
Yeah, Stephen loved all the
Everybody
big
loves
banners.
banners. I love banners. I love putting them up in a booth. You know, you go to the fair, you put up a booth in the fair for your organization. You need a banner to go over the top. You need a banner for the back of your booth so that when people come up, they can see the back of it. Any size, any shape, any color, have it designed any way you want.
And they have someone there that can design stuff too.
They do have a design crew there. There's so much that you can do there.
They have a notary. They
You know,
can
people
do
go there for their
blueprints.
documents, right? People go there to drop off their Amazon returns, right?
Yep.
But they forget about all the other fun stuff you can do there, and there's so much.
Yeah. And they have posts.
Understand the people you are dealing with are some of the best people in Robertson County. These are some good people. I know Tom Fox, the owner. He's a great guy. He's one of the best people in Robertson County. I can tell you right now. And anybody you talk to that knows him or has met him or done business with him, they are going to tell you the same thing. He's one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. If you don't have a grandpa, your little girl, right? You can. Hey, this guy's amazing. I love Tom. What a great grandpa he is to his granddaughters. And you know what? He is a good man and a good businessman. But the other thing is, he is so nice to his employees. They love working for him. They do. They don't want to quit. They love him. He's a great guy. And so the employees are happy. And when employees are happy, the customers are happy, and everybody's happy. I tell you what, let's get happy on this one.
All right. So UPS store is located at 513 Memorial Boulevard in Springfield, right by HG Hill. If you need to call them, it's 615-384-0093. And I do recommend that, especially if you send a document over, you want to make sure that they got it, because sometimes you put in the wrong email address or whatever. So you want to make sure that they got it and that they're going to print it for you. Lastly, because I know that there's porch pirates out there, people that steal your Amazon packages. Well, UPS store also has a service where you can have a mailbox there, and you can get large packages there too. So don't think like, oh, well, they just have the little mailbox, the little squares. No, that's okay, because if there's a large package, it can still be delivered there. They have shelves to put that on. So if you have something special that's coming and you're like, oh man, but I'm not going to be home for a week or whatever, you can also get things delivered to you via
Absolutely.
UPS store. So anyways, those are two of our favorite sponsors. We'll talk about the other two after the second half of our break. But this is Lee Marie. We do a weekly Go Show every single Wednesday where we talk about certain events coming up. And also we try to give some other maybe inspiration or information. My special guest today is Stephen Astaire.
Hello.
And I'm so glad you could make it today. Really am. And I'm glad that the Lord delivered that beautiful message about don't forget, those people around you you. And because so oftentimes we get so absorbed, and the enemy will use so many things to distract us from our family and from things that we should be doing, especially with videos. Those reels, they just come up, and we just keep watching like, oh my gosh, this is great, great.
Be careful of your doom scrolling. Anybody can fall prey to doom scrolling on the
Oh,
internet.
is that what it's called? Doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling is a problem. We can have that. People get caught up in the doom scroll, and it starts to make them depressed. Now, it's not that you don't want to, ignore the world and say there are bad things happening in the world, and I'm not gonna look at it. Well, yeah, there are bad things happening in the world, and maybe it's best you don't look at it. But at the same time, you do want to be informed, and you do want to know what's going on. If that's something that you work on, it's something that you do. Now, when you have children and you've got a business to run and you've got other things on your mind, you don't need to be doom scrolling, right? And getting depressed about things going on in the world, because you've got bigger fish to fry at home here, right? You've got children to take care of, you've got a business to take care of, and nobody is going to blame you for focusing on your family, protecting what's yours, protecting your family. Right? Strong families make strong countries, make strong counties, strong cities and states, and strong families make strong nations. We want to be a strong nation and
Amen.
strong families. Strong families have happy children make other strong families as they grow up, as we see, and we make ourselves strong that way. Now, the other thing here is this. Families are important, and we've got groups of families, right? Sometimes groups of families are called clans. And when we stick together, when we band together, we can be an immovable force. We can be a powerful force for change in the world. We can make things better around us. We can continue to make our cities great and continue to make them great again, as they say, right? So we can continue to do that. And I think that when it comes to families, one of the most important things we should always remember when it comes to families is how important families are to everybody, even people who don't have a complete family. Now, maybe you've got a family member who's gone, who's passed away, or maybe you've got a situation where mom and dad decided they didn't want to be together anymore. And sometimes that happens. Now, what does that mean? That means now you might be split up. You might be a split up family, or you might be a blended family where now mom and dad have moved on and got new partners, and now you have a new dad or a new mom in the family, and you have a second family on the other side with the dad or the mom, and they have another family. So now your family is twice the size as it was before, and you've got two sets of parents, which is very interesting. They call those blended families. Now, I think that a blended family could be a blessing because you've just extended. You've got new brothers and sisters from another family, which are still your brothers and sisters. So this is very interesting. And I think that is also a situation that can be turned for the good. And I think you can feel good about that too. You can feel good about any situation that comes up eventually. Now, in the beginning, there might be other situations. Now, I know a young lady, and now we're talking about fear and things of this. And we went down the list of fears, and some of those fears can be fears like fear and stress that come together. We talked about that, fear and stress that come together. But the main things that people are afraid of, and he said the main things, public speaking is one of the number one things people are afraid of, right? See, what else can we think of? Now, there's another thing. What?
Death and suffering.
Death and suffering.
Afraid.
People don't want to suffer. If I'm going to die, let me die in my sleep, all right? Let me just drift off to sleep, have a nice, happy dream that I'm going to heaven and go to heaven. Right? That's the best way to go, right? We don't want to go in a blazing fire or anything like that. We don't want to go in a car accident. We don't want anything horrible to happen to us. We don't want it to be hurt to be in pain when we die. We know that. And some people are horribly afraid of dying, but they're not really afraid of dying. They're afraid of being non-existent. They're afraid of disappearing, right? And then other people are afraid. You said evil, right?
Yes.
Being afraid of evil.
Oh yeah. Where's that list? Can I see that book?
Look at that list. We have a list of fears, right?
So this is inside the Biblical Foundations of Freedom book. Let me see if I get the right camera on me here. There we go. So we were looking at the fear chapter because we know that, that's what the enemy loves to use to keep us distracted and keep us from the Lord. And there's a half a page, and then 1, 2. If you can see, there's like 30 per page. 1, 2, 3. There's like 4 pages.
Now, I know there's a special story. You told me a story once about your
fears.
childhood, and we talked about that story. And you said that there was a time when you were in school, and the teacher wanted everybody to write a paper about their parents,
Hmm.
right? And you had a situation. You want to tell that story? I mean, because that story was very close, and that's a story that actually made me cry a little bit. And I know that that might be a good one here because I have something to say about that.
Okay.
Lee Marie, I
Okay.
know
Yeah.
you have a
So
wonderful
what it was
story.
is I believe it was fourth. No, it was fifth grade. And we had 1 week where we were all doing an oral report on our mothers. So we all got up and told about our mothers, like a little
And what
biographical.
did you tell about your mother?
Oh, well, my mom was amazing. She was so friendly. She was so positive. She had amazing laughter. Just, I mean, her laugh was just so contagious. You walk into a room and if she was in that room, she was probably laughing, and definitely talking with everybody. So I love those memories, of my mom because and one of her favorite things to say was, where there's a will, there's a way. Because I would say, but mom, did it? She's like, well, there's a will, there's a way. Like nothing was impossible, And so I love that positivity about her. So that was my mom, Mama Lou.
Well, in acting studio class, we would always say, "Where there's a will, Anne Hathaway."
Oh goodness. Da, da, da. Where's
Da,
my
da, da.
drum? Where's my
So
drum?
then the next week came
So then the
along, and you
next
had
week we had to do an oral report on our fathers,
Mhm.
and I was the only one in there that did not have a father. And this was a long time ago, so there, divorce wasn't even that,
And your father was a
and
lawyer,
so yeah,
and he had passed away
right.
from a heart
He
attack, right?
yes, when I was 5, he passed away at age 48 of his first heart attack. And so I was the only one in that class, and we had about 33 kids, I think, in that class. And so
So
not
you were
even
the only one who didn't have a father to
right.
write about at the time.
Right, right. There wasn't even, I don't even think any divorced families in my class at that time. So, anyways, I went up to the teacher before I left the week before to say, like, I don't have a father. Do I have to do this? Because I don't really even know him. I don't have memories of my father. And so she said, no, yes, you do. You know, and so I remember I had the same hairstyle. Although I think maybe I didn't have the bangs, but I always had long hair. And so I'm, in my curtain, I tried to have it all the way around me so people couldn't even see the tears coming down my face because I was crying the whole time that I was having to speak about him. And so it was a very painful thing to do, and then of course the last sentence was, and then he died, in 1971, blah, blah, blah. So now what did you want to say about that story?
Well, it's interesting because from when you realized that your father had died, when you were old enough to realize that your father had died of a heart attack, um, you told me that you had a specific fear. You want to talk about
Oh,
that?
yes, yes, yes. So, because my father died when I was very young, and then my grandparents were always, they were older. My mom was almost 40 when she had me. So there always seemed to be when I was young, like, in first grade, there always would seem to be a family member that died every year. And I thought that was normal because when you're a kid and things happen, you think they're normal.
It's like somebody's dying every single
Right.
year.
And then I remember, saying something to one of my teachers one time about like nobody died this year. And they're like, that's not normal. Like, you're not a normal family. I'm like, well, because all of my grandparents had passed away, and there was actually a couple sets because my father was he had lived with his stepmom, and so that was a real tragic thing. And I think that was one of the reasons why he had real bad stress and depression is he was like, I think, and I don't know the exact story, but something like put on a train when he was 6 or something, go live with your with your stepmom because we don't want you, and so for a
They
young
told him
age.
they didn't want him.
Right.
Yeah,
So actually his stepmom was the one that would it was yeah, his father remarried, and that lady was mean.
that
But
was
anyways,
rough.
so that was something that was really, really, I don't think he ever got over that, and understandably,
Yeah, when you're 5 years old and it's 1936 or what have you, and they say, you know,
we don't
we're,
want you.
we're going to send you to your uncles because we
Yeah,
don't want you anymore.
yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine how traumatic that was for him.
So that led to, I'm sure, a lot of his depression and alcoholism and all that.
And,
But
don't need to be fear of abandonment. He was literally abandoned.
right.
Yeah.
So anyways, so back to the story where, yeah, when I was young, people were always dying, in my family, the older people. And so anyways, and then my mom, I was always afraid every time she went to sleep, I was afraid she wasn't going to wake up. So as a child, I lived in constant fear of abandonment. And for some reason, I thought that if my mother died, that I would then be put in an orphanage. Even though I had five older siblings, they all ranged in age from one was 16 when I was born, and then the youngest one was 8 when I was born. So I had five older siblings. So I wouldn't have been put in an orphanage. One of them would have been able to take me. But again, as a kid, you don't ask all the questions. You just see things and you think you know. So I always thought my mother was going to die, and so one of my first goals as a kid was I want to be able to take care of myself, and so that when as soon as I was 18, I moved out and I had several jobs. I had an apartment. I was in college, and I never went back, and I was happy because I was like, I made it. I don't have to rely, I don't have to check somebody's pulse. Are they breathing? Like I can take care of myself. So that made me very independent at a very young age. So that was the story you wanted me to tell?
Well, that was a good story.
Okay.
Yeah, it did make you independent. Now, fear of abandonment is something that is very subtle, or it can be very strong. And I think in a lot of people, we have this situation. In my family, I've seen this over and over again. My dad, my grandfather on his side, died of a heart attack, his first heart attack, back in I think it was 1960 or so. And so my dad was about 11 years old at the time, 10 or 11. And they suffered, all the children, there were four children. The oldest was 17, and the youngest was 3 or 4.
Mm.
So my grandmother was then a single mom with four children, or two teenagers and two little ones. And she, continued to raise it. Now, those children all suffered the effects of abandonment, and the fear of, and the fears that come along with that.
Mm-hmm.
No family, no family gets out with some issues, whatever that's going to be, right? Every family has something that's gone on in their family that's hurtful, harmful, and it does create anxiety, stress, and fear. And we were talking about fear today. I think that when you talk about fear of abandonment, everybody has it. We talked about when you fall in love, you're afraid you're going to lose the one you're in love with. When you're a child, you're afraid that you're going to lose your parent. If you've lost one parent, you're afraid you're going to lose the other one. And like you said there, you thought you were going to go live in an orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. I would say all of this is part of fear, right? Fear is like the general term that we use to describe what's going on inside of us, the emotional sense of the unexpected in a bad way, the unexpected in a way that we are overwhelmed. We have no control over it. So just like falling in love, we don't have any control over falling in love. We don't have any control over the fear that comes with the potential loss, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
So any potential loss, we don't have control over it. We're afraid of what we can't control. So what happens to a lot of people, right? They become control freaks, or they become overachievers, as we call that. Control freaks, overachievers, people who insist on things being done a certain way.
And Sheila was talking about, Sheila, was it Sheila? Last Wednesday. Yeah, Sheila Bird was talking about the control freak aspect.
Yeah.
If you guys missed that show, really go back and watch it.
How it is seriously related to our allergies that we have every year, and things like that. This is all part of that type of fear. That type of fear that is the uncontrolled feeling that we have of loss, or the potential loss, or whatever it might be. So whatever that is in us, we see that does relate to disease in our bodies. And it is, I believe it is a superior, it is the number one cause of everything that's wrong with us. Because anytime we are afraid, and it's an out of control fear, we might behave in such a way that is wrong in so many different ways, right? So, to see that episode, there's a Twilight Zone episode that I really love, where there's a small community, and what happens is that the small community believes that they're being invaded by aliens from outer space. but they think that the aliens have taken on the form of a human being that look like their neighbors, and they don't know which of their neighbors is the alien. And so neighbor against neighbor, they start to fight. They become very suspicious of their neighbors, and it starts to tear their community apart. So fear is a the results of fear are terrible and horrific. The results of fear and the element of control, trying to control and oppress others because we are afraid, right? And you think of this, I talked about, I read a couple of books last 2 weeks ago on the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany. And it was fear that allowed them to come to power. It was fear of something worse happening, and the people allowed them to come to power because the people lived in fear. Fear can have some terrible outcomes for any community or any organization. So what is the cure for fear? Well, the thing about fear is that fear is a feeling of being out of control. So that the need to control is something that is sort of like the reaction. But that's our reaction. God says that we should have faith, and that faith will combat the fear, right?
Yes.
We say faith will combat fear. Now, faith comes with a lot of other things. First, we have to back up a minute. We have to say, you know what? If I've been acting as if I'm out of control, I've been trying to take control of everything, I need to forgive myself from because that's a natural thing to do. It's sort of like a natural response, right? We're being led like dogs. We don't even know it. We're being led like dogs down this road. This classical conditioning of a fear response. And doom scrolling, the people who advertise on the internet while you're doom scrolling are taking advantage of you because they are advertising to your fear, right? Yeah. So if you ever notice that when you watch a program on, I'm just as bad as everybody else. I watch a program on television where there's been a murder or something like this, or there's been a home invasion. And what do I get immediately in the break? I get home security services, right? I get armed guard services, home security services, and all of this. And I want to buy as many cameras and as many alarms as I possibly can to protect my home and my property, right? And make sure that I have 24-hour surveillance that I have access to on my phone so that I can watch it, because I'm watching shows about home invasion. So it's just as bad as doom scrolling. The advertisers are taking advantage of your fear. They're creating the fear, and then they're taking advantage of that fear response. So is that having faith? No, that's trying to control everything. It's trying to be a control person. We know that when we overreact with this. And I know this is, first thing we have to do is we have to ask for forgiveness because we have become controlling and oppressive. We might be controlling and oppressive towards our wife, towards our children, towards our business, our employees, who knows? But if we're becoming oppressive and controlling, right, we're not living through faith, because it's faith that's going to liberate us, and it's faith that's going to give us new ways.
And we get faith through the Word of God.
When you have faith, you can come up with new ideas. You can come up with better ways to get things done. You can free up your mind, because when you're stressed and you're under control, then you're acting like a desperate animal that's been pinned in a corner, right? They're reactive. And when you're reactive, you don't have good ideas. There's no good idea when you're just being a reactive person.
Right. And, I can't recommend Shannon enough. And I had a session with her yesterday, and she just reminded me, she sent me some scriptures to just read out loud every morning because, we can combat all of this, with the Word of God.
And if you haven't figured it out yet, being out of control with a situation, what we call fear, just like falling in love, right? We are out of control when we're falling in love, and we're out of control of the fear that comes with the loss of that love, right? Those are both out of control feelings. What else do we not have control over? Well, how about something to say the way to combat this is to do something that doesn't require control. It requires the opposite of control, and that is faith. And the opposite of control is faith. So we use faith, which is something that is something that doesn't have a control element to it, to combat the feeling of being out of control. So taking control is not the way to combat feeling out of control. Having faith is the way to combat the feeling of
Right.
being
Put
out
your
of
eyes on
control.
the Lord, and
If
all
you haven't
things will
figured that
fall
out
in.
yet, it's a good thing to get to. We can talk more about that in a minute. But and some of the things that they suggest here in one of these, at least one of these books that we're looking at. But you can come up with example over example over example. What were you afraid of as a child? What are you afraid of now? What is it that makes you fear for your life?
Well, we have got only 12 minutes left, and we do have some calendar stuff, so I am going to have to cut this segment portion off, but just say that, Shannon and John have a website. It's tnwellspring.com, tnwellspring.com. So if you are, in the grips of fear and you need help, you can give them a call, 615-533-4587. Right now, their ministry, they are not charging for their sessions.
Keep
So
in mind, this is completely free.
mhm.
This, they put their time, their work, and their money, and they are experts in the field of counseling with people. And when it comes to fear, I can tell you, we've seen miracles happen.
Mhm.
Diseases that were created by fear have been reversed.
Yeah.
Things that you would not believe have taken place.
So there is something big happening this weekend right here in Nashville. So I need to tell you guys about this. So SPIGMA is in town, and that stands for the Society for the Preservation of Bluegrass Music of America. And so this is at the Sheraton, and it's a multiple day. I'm going to actually share this Facebook invite on my page, but it's basically a 4-day bluegrass convention with workshops and showcases, award show. They'll have an exhibit hall, a whole bunch of stuff. And that's going to be at the Sheraton Music City Hotel, 777 McGavock Pike in Nashville. So that is huge. I hope that the snow, now be praying that snow just keeps going more north so we won't be dealing with it. But yes, the 51st annual SPIGMA convention. And the prices are all listed there. You can get little, 1 day, 2 day, 3. So make sure you take a look at that, because I know we have a lot of bluegrass fans out there. I know that's where our good friend
Linda,
Lee,
get your mandolin. Tune up that mandolin that's collecting dust in the corner there. Tune up your mandolin. Let's get together. We'll do some singing, and we'll do some picking and grinning, and we'll have a good time.
So anyways, that is what's going on. But there are a lot of things coming up, and I'm just going to be sharing a whole bunch of stuff on my Facebook page because I'm not going to be able to get through a lot of it today. But I do want to let you know, yesterday Rose was on Laverne's show talking about the Pinewood Derby that is going to be tomorrow at the Stokes Brown Public Library. And they're having contests for like kids, teens, and adults. So if you have a little Pinewood Derby car, when you get there, you have to have it weighed because it can only be a certain amount, But how cool is that, especially for little kids, guys? This is a free thing to participate in. And I know that Clint was helping people build their cars leading up to this, but I know some people already have their cars. So you're going to need to already have it ready for tomorrow. But anyways, January 22nd at Stokes Brown Public Library, Pinewood Derby Race. It starts at 5 p.m. and it goes until 7 p.m. So registration starts at 5 and then the race starts at 6.
That is a fond memory I have of building a car. Yeah, when I was a child, and my father helped me with that. It is just a great thing. It's just so much fun when those things are great. Anyway, Rose, you got to talk about Rose for a minute here. I had the opportunity to spend a couple of days with Rose at the library in the children's section there. I don't remember why I was there, but I spent a couple of days. Maybe I was volunteering or something. I don't remember. But I had a really good time with Rose, and I realized something that I did not know much about kindergarten children. And, my grandmother was a kindergarten teacher, retired as a kindergarten teacher, and she won an award from the state and the governor and all that from her work and charity. But when I worked with Rose, I realized that it takes a special kind of person to understand children. And Rose is one of those people.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a whole bunch of little children, Rose is the person to organize that situation. She is so amazing with children. And I have such a deep appreciation for somebody with that kind of a talent and understands children the way she does. And I'm really impressed with that. And I learned so much, and I have a deep appreciation for children. Little children who are learning like that. And I remember we were all a little 4-year-old at one time in our life, and we all needed a Rose to organize and help in our activities. We all need a Rose.
There you go. We all need a Rose.
My grandmother was one, and Rose is one.
All right.
This is wonderful.
Okay, so I'm going to Tribute Quartet is coming to Greenbrier. We love Tribute Quartet. Make sure you put that on your calendar, February 19th. Also, you guys, have you seen the beautiful Valentine decorations over at Southside, one of our favorite sponsors? Again, Leslie just does an amazing job in the window, but Southside is not just a pharmacy. They have a lot of fun original gifts.
Yes.
And so they are open 8 to 6 Monday through Friday, Saturday 8 to 12. They're located at 1000 South Main Street, where the big marquee is. You can also visit their website at southsidedrugco.com. Make sure you tell them Lee Marie sent you. And then also not too far from there, we have the Ridgetop Mower of Springfield. Guys, make sure that your mower is completely in a good hibernation mode, because you don't want to have to buy a new one next spring.
Right now, we are in hibernation mode for those mowers. So remember, there are things that you need to do for that. If you don't know how to do it, you got to get it to Gary, or have Gary pick it up, have him put it in hibernation mode for you and get it back to you. He will do that. He'll pick it up for you. He'll
And
get it
right
back to you.
now, he is doing, at least the last time I stopped in, he said, I'm still doing 50% off pickup and delivery for right now. I think it's just for the month of January. So take advantage of that, because that can be costly, and difficult to get your mower there and back. So anyways, Ridgetop Mower of Springfield is located at what's the address?
1101
1101
Matthews Street
1101 Matthews Street.
in the heart of Springfield.
That's right. You can reach Gary at 615-855-0044. 615-855-0044. Those are our sponsors that keep us alive here at WSGI. But also, guys, remember, Well in the Square. In case you haven't noticed, I've been looking younger and thinner and healthier, and I'm really happy about that. And the reason why I'm doing that, why I feel this way and look this way.
She wants to look good for her husband.
Well, yeah, that too. But he's been helping me, because his 9 a.m. stretching class, he's got some real hardcore fans now that they are so into it. 9 a.m. every Monday, you can come to Well in the Square. He's showing us how to breathe, make our whole body work as one efficient unit, so we even burn fat while we sleep. I love that. So get
Burn
out
fat
to
while you sleep.
That's right. Stephen's stretching and breathing class, 9 a.m. every Monday. Start the week off right, guys. And it's only $10. And then on Tuesdays, resistance band workout, total workout, 10:15 every Tuesday and Thursday. That is Cindy Norton's class.
I've been doing those workouts for 30 years, and it's still $10.
Oh.
It was $10 in 2005.
Wow.
And it's still $10.
Awesome.
So yes, I've always had a large group, mostly ladies, but I trained a lot of men too. But remember, it's been 30 years that I've been doing this, and it's still $10.
There you go. Price hasn't gone up. And then also Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. and then Tuesday nights at 5:30 p.m. I'm doing line dance, and I made a resolution to be putting in more new ones. Matter of fact, I showed Stephen last night 3 new line dances right there in the kitchen. So we're having a great time. And then also we're going to be performing, and so some of our students are going to perform at that Sweetheart Sock Hop coming up on Friday, February 13th. So we're having a blast in line dance. I want to add some more dates. I'm just waiting for y'all to tell me what dates and times that you want to do some line dancing on that beautiful wooden floor, because let me tell you guys, it's way more fun to exercise to good music with friends than to go in a gym. So not saying, not to go to the gym, but
We
come
have
on.
a suspended wooded floor there, which is great. That building is built in such a way that makes a beautiful dance floor. And you can really tell the difference. If you've been dancing on concrete, you will really appreciate a suspended wooden floor to dance on. And we spent years dancing in ballrooms with suspended wooden floors. And anytime we had to go out and dance at Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm, someplace on concrete, we always dreaded it. But we knew
We
we'd
had
come
to
back
do
to
it.
that suspended wooden floor as soon as we possibly could.
Yep. Exactly. So it is only 3 minutes to 9. I do want to mention we will have a special edition Go Show the first Friday of every month. So remember that. First Friday, 8 to 9. And Sheila is actually going to come on for our next one. So that's going to be super interesting, because she had, I think, cancer twice.
She had cancer a few times.
And got rid of it.
She's preaching what we've been talking about today, and that is faith over fear. And faith over fear, because faith is the only way to combat fear. There is no other way. You can you can control, and that you are going to run out of ways to control, and something is going to get away from you. You cannot control everything all the time. At some point, you absolutely have to have faith. And that is going to be the breaking point for that is going to be the time that you actually conquer it.
Okay, and then also one other thing I want to tell you guys about. You still have a few more days. What's the date today? Today's the 21st. Okay, you still have to the end of January. The Country Music Hall of Fame is free for nearby counties. So there's
Oh, we
about
just went to that.
yeah, we went last Saturday. And
And
so
that was
make
fun.
sure you reserve your tickets online because even though it's free, well, it's called pay what you want. So you could pay whatever you want or you could pay zero. Anyways, make sure you go online and get your tickets because then when you get there, you just walk up to Will Call where there was no line and pick up your tickets. The line to pick up tickets, I mean, the line to like enter, into the computer was very long. It was like 100 people in that line. So we were so glad that we had gone online and got our tickets early. So again, the Country Music Hall of Fame is free for the rest of January. You need to bring in your ID and show that you are a local resident. And there's, I think, 5 counties that touch, the area that
I love
is
the
free.
interactive part. You love that too.
That's
I took
fun.
a video of you in there. You were recording your song.
Yes, you can go in a little room and sing and get videotaped. That was real fun. So just take advantage of that, guys, because there's so much of our history started with with bluegrass and just so much. We could
Yeah,
talk
you'll
about
learn
that
a
for a
lot
long
about
time.
about where the music comes from, and the influences that happen, to bring us to today, and all the way up to today. I like the old part,
Hmm.
the top floor there, the old part, where it has Jimmy Rogers is one of my favorite, the old time guy waiting for a train, and they've got the Jimmy Rogers guitar there, his guitar that he used and sang on. I just love Jimmy Rogers, and I love that guitar. And then the artifacts that they have there are just fun, and of course Bill Monroe from Bluegrass. They have his mandolin, the
Hmm.
mandolin that was destroyed at one point. 150 pieces was shattered by a vandal who broke into his house when he wasn't there, and Gibson put it back together, and he played on it till the day that he died. Yeah. So, and they still have that mandolin there, and that is just another fun little bluegrass history. The mandolin, Bill Monroe's mandolin that was shattered and put back together again. I'm flabbergasted. How did they ever do that? I don't know. They take those splinters, put them back together, and actually have an instrument that's under high tension. These are stringed instruments like violins. They're under high tension. How do you get all those little splinters to hold together? I don't know, but miraculously they were able to put it back together, and they have that at the museum there with a tribute for Bill Monroe, the
Yeah, there's so
father
much. I
of
mean, there's
bluegrass.
like I think 3 floors of exhibits. Even have an Elvis car. So, anyways, get on over there, and but it's 9 o'clock, so we're gonna have to say goodbye.
Oh, say goodbye.
Can you
But
believe that?
remember, instead of control, try faith over fear. And we can talk more about that as the coming months come along. But faith over fear, folks. And remember, you were falling in love at one point, and you remember how afraid you became of losing your love. Remember that. Faith over fear, and it's a faithful relationship. Faith is what binds us together. Faith is what keeps us together, and being a faithful partner is one of the things we should really strive. We should love and enjoy our life, and we can't do it by trying to control everything. We have to have faith at some point, and that makes it all worth it, doesn't it?
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on and being my guest. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Remember,
Thank you for having me.
if you missed any part of the show, you can watch it. Facebook keeps it up for 30 days. YouTube keeps it up for much longer. So go ahead and share it if you want to let somebody else know what's going on. There's so much going on in Robertson County. We absolutely love it here. And but remember, there could be some serious snow coming this weekend. So you just want to prep. Don't be crazy, but just be reasonable about it all. And of course, press into the Lord. He says, cast your eyes on him, right? And everything else be put into place. All right, guys, have a great day. Today is Wednesday, January 21st, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. You've been listening to 1100 WSGI.